calculators. Again, you're more than welcome to try anything you want in terms of the online calculators. The STEAM tables should be identical no matter what resource that you use. So whether you use this online set of tables or if you use tables that you might have from your thermodynamics textbook or from any other resource, you should see values that are identical to 6 significant figures. So if you don't see good agreement between different resources, then there's likely some problem with the way that you're calculating or determining the information. Okay, so let's go through the online STEAM tables here. So we're going to run the calculator here. And that's going to open up this pane that shows you all these different tabs. So you have general properties for the STEAM tables, saturation properties, steam turbine, flash evaporator, and all these other tabs. We're only going to use the general properties and the saturation properties. And the general properties are just the superheat portion, superheat region of the STEAM tables. And here you have the input functions, the way that you can input the data. And in this case, you have it set up as the default is set up as pressure and temperature. And you can see the pressure is in bar and the temperature that you're looking for is in degrees Celsius. So if we were to go ahead and put in a couple of parameters here to determine the information, let's say we want state information for 100 bar and let's say 585 degrees Celsius, and then we hit calculate. We see the information for the state is populated in this first window here, the main thermodynamics property window, and you can see pressure and temperature. Those were our input parameters. And then we have density, specific volume, enthalpy, entropy are all provided. Exergy is a very advanced thermodynamic property that we're not going to cover in this class. Specific energy we have covered. The constant pressure, specific heat, that's the specific isobaric heat capacity, that CP is provided, and CV is also provided in the speed of sound, which of course we won't use. Other good information they provide is a specific gas constant, and of course this is for water, so we know that the molar mass or the molecular weight is 18 grams per mole, and if you have the universal gas constant and the molecular weight, you can determine the specific gas constant. So all sorts of good information is provided in this window. And then so if we want the enthalpy, we can determine the enthalpy from this list. We can take the enthalpy from this list. I caution you about significant figures. Please do not use more than 5 or 6 significant figures in this course. This is a wee bit more than I think we can state with any confidence that is shown here in this table. And what we'll find is if you use the free version of this table is that of this online software is that you can accidentally, or maybe it's even on purpose, you can put in state conditions that would actually not be in the superheat region. So let's take 100 bar and 100 Celsius. And we use that to calculate. And you see is that, actually we did get information on this one. Okay. So, sorry, they did manage to give us the information. I was trying to find a condition where they would run out of information for the free software. So often it'll tell you, that's not accessible. That's not a region where you have access for the free version of this software. I know an example in the saturation properties, so let's go there. So I've clicked on the tab, the second tab here. So this is for properties that are within the saturation region. And let's go ahead and choose 1 bar, which I know is outside the range of what they'll give us access to, and a quality of 50%. And so you see it says, your free pressure range, and free here they mean is access to the free version of the software, is between 10 and 170 bar. So of course you can't get that information here. So let's go ahead and put in something like a pressure of, let's say, 50 bar and a 50% quality. And we calculate that. And we can see that we do get information here in terms of the saturated liquid and the saturated vapor, and then the 50% value that's between those two. Now, if we come down in this lower pane here, the output pane, you're seeing you get a lot of this registration is required. But the information we need is also provided in this upper pane here. Okay, so again, if we have 50% quality, the saturated liquid's 1148 for the internal energy, the saturated vapors 2596, or let's say 2600, and you can see it makes sense. 50% between those two values is about 1872. So the information we want is shown in red. Okay, so there are also going to be other functions. If you look at the drop-down menu here, the saturation properties are shown for pressure and quality, which is the X. But if you went to, let's say, temperature and enthalpy, you may also run into challenges where that's not accessible for the free version of the software. So I'll tell you this, is for any of the homework problems and any of the examples that we do in this class, we make sure that the online STEAM tables will work for you, that information is within the freely accessible portion of this calculator. Just make sure you look in this upper plane, okay? So again, you're more than welcome to use other resources, but we will use this. I will tell you if you have conditions where we can't use this resource, and I will provide tables for you of the STEAM data, and I expect you to be able to look at those tables and be able to determine what's the right values to use. And you'll see that in some of the examples later on in the segments. So let's go back to the general properties here again. If we delete out these previous calculations, and we come back up here, and let's go ahead and try and get state conditions. Let's go ahead and get state conditions for, let's say, 85 bar. Oops, not 185, 85 bar. And for, let's say, 690 degrees Celsius. I'm just choosing some random values. And we do the calculation. Again, look in this plane. Every now and then the software doesn't like to put the output pane here, the output registration, the output pane doesn't always repeat the information that's shown up here. And sometimes that's because it says you only get access to 3 states at a time. So if we wanted to get more information in this output pane so that we could store consecutive states, we'd have to have no more than 3 in the output pane at any particular time. But again, the information we want can always be found in this main window. So I hope that clears things up. Try not to get frustrated. I know there's a lot of data that we don't have access to in this online calculator. These are new tools that are just recently being developed. If you decide to go out and buy yourself a thermodynamics textbook, most of the new textbooks will provide electronic access to STEAM tables and to a whole lot of other fluids, steam, air, carbon dioxide, a range of different refrigerants. So there are other tools that are becoming more and more accessible, but we're really in a transition now in a community from using these hard paper copies of tables to these online versions of these tables.